Hello and welcome to Chapter 11 Video Problems. Our first problem is to perform each conversion. So the first one is 2.3 atmospheres to torrs. So we need to first start off with what we're given, which is a 2.3 ATM. Now, if we refer to our textbook, it gives us all of the conversion factors. So it tells us that 1 ATM is equal to 760 torr. So we have 760 torr on the top, and then 1 ATM at the bottom. Our ATMs cancels out, so we're simply doing 2.3 times 760, and we get 1,748 torr. Our next one is 4.7 times 10 to the negative second atmospheres to millimeters of mercury. So same thing, we start with what we're given and we use our conversion factors listed in our textbook. So let's start with what we're given. So 4.7 times 10 to the negative second atmospheres times, now it tells us that 1 ATM is equal to 760 millimeters of mercury. So we have ATM at the bottom and then 760 millimeters of mercury at the top. Our ATMs cancels out. So all we're doing is 4.7 times 10 to the negative second. Let's put that in our brackets in our calculator, times 760, and we should get 35.72 millimeters of mercury. Our next problem is 24.8 psi, 2 millimeters of mercury. So same thing, we start with what we're given, which is the 24.8 psi. Now, if we look in our textbook, we can go from our PSI to ATM, then we can go from ATM to our millimeters of mercury. So in 1 ATM, there is 14.7 PSI. So 14.7 PSI goes on the bottom and 1 atmosphere on the top. Our PSIs cancels out. Now we need to go from ATM to millimeters of mercury, and we can use the same conversion factor as the last equation. So we know that in 1 ATM there is 760 millimeters of mercury. So 760 millimeters of mercury goes on the top, and our 1 ATM goes on the bottom. Our ATMs cancels out, and we are left with our millimeters of mercury, which is what our problem is asking. So we are doing 24.8 times 760 divided by our 14.7, and we should get, let's see, we have 3 significant figures, so our answer is going to be 1282, but then with 3 sig figs, it turns into 1,280 millimeters of mercury. Our last one is 32.84 inches of mercury to torr. So same thing, in our textbook it gives us that 1 ATM is 29.92 inches of mercury. Then we can go from ATM to torr, just like in our first example on this page. So let's start with what we're given, which is the 32.84 inches of mercury. And we know that in 1 ATM, there's 29.92 inches of mercury. So 1 ATM over 29.92 inches of mercury times, now we go from ATM to torr. So we know that there's 760 torr in 1 ATM. And just to verify, all of our units are going to cancel out, except for our torr, which is what is asking for. So 32.84 times 760 divided by our 29.92. Now it's in 4 sig figs, so our answer is going to be 834.2 torr.